Welcome back. In the last lecture, we have talked about these destructuring arrays. Like that, we can also have these destructuring objects. Let's do that now. Back to VS Code. Now place all these code in comments. And then here I have added this text. That means this restaurant object. I have added this opening hours object. So let's now talk about object destructuring. We use curly braces for destruction and then we have to provide the variable names. So now here, for suppose I am taking this variable names as name, categories, and opening hour. So let's write here, open curly braces, and then here name, using const, name, then categories, and also I am using here opening hours. So these are the variable names that what we have to match with these ones. So, and then simply write here is equal restaurant. And now let's log this to console, console.log, name, categories, and then opening hours. Now let's reload, give a save and reload. See here, this is the name of the restaurant. This is the name. And then these are the categories, and then the opening hours. They displayed all these. So this is the basic fundamentals of destructuring objects. And so now if I want to create a new names for these variables, so for that write const curly braces name equal name. Here I want to change this name. So I'm giving here restaurant name. And then the next one I want to change the categories. That is, I'm giving tags. And then opening hours. So for this I am giving the simply hours. So these three are equal restaurant. Now let's console.log restaurant name and then tags. Now let's reload. See here, it displayed the restaurant name, hours, and tags. So this is the restaurant name, and this is the hours, and this is tags. So same, but we need to display the assigning the different name for that. Doing like this is very much helpful for us when dealing with the third party data. And another useful feature that when we are dealing with the third party data, so like an object that we get from somewhere else. For example, an API call, it can be really useful to have default values. For that, when we are trying to read a property that does not exist on the object. So usually then we get an undefined. For example, if we are trying to say that like restaurant dot menu. So here in these properties, we don't have like that property. So restaurant menu, we have here only the starter menu and then main menu. So that we can set default values. So let's say that we are destructing the menu like this. Here write const curly braces menu. And so we use equal to set as a default value. All right, like this equal. And now even we combine this syntax here. Let's say that we are trying to retrieve in the starter menu. So right here starter menu. So here the starter menu, we want to call it just starters. So write starters. And that we want to give here a default value that does not exist there. So, and that is equal, write the restaurant. So here the starter menu that exists here. So that's why it will not apply to the, so the default value that will not apply to this starter menu, and then this menu, the default value will apply because it does not exist in this here. So the default value apply to menu. Now let's log this into console. Console.log menu and then starters. Now let's reload. So here see that we get the default value that is empty arrow, and then the starter means that is starter menu, that is the starter menu. It displayed this, and then now here the default value I am replacing, deleting that one. So now check here. So here it is undefined. It is displayed as undefined because we erased that. Now replace, assign the default value. Now let's check. So it is an empty array. Now let's move on to the mutating variables, that is while destructuring objects. We did that before with the arrays when we were switching variables. Remember that one? Let's see that here. See here, you see that we mutated these variables that we created before, and then in objects it works a little bit differently. Let's see that the mutating variables. Variables, and then these are default values. Now let us suppose we already have these values equal, and then let b equal 9. Now we have this object. Let's write here in curly braces. Value, and then we giving c value putting. Now first we need to save it in a variable. Further I'm writing object. Then now we have to destructure the array. We cannot say const like a comma b like that. We simply say we already declared a and b. So for that reason we can't write const or let to create new variables. So simply create this a comma b, and then this is equal object. Now reload. Here we have an error that unexpected token. So it is because we cannot assign anything to it, to this like this. So we use here the blocks. We need to wrap this also. For that reason it is showing error. Then let's log this into console. Now basically we did override these two values. So we had wrapped this destructuring assignment into parentheses. Then we already know how object destructuring works. Let's see that. Reload. Now let us say we wanted to create two variables, that is open and close. Here see open and close Friday. Okay, now you see that opening hours is an object, and we have another object. So this is Friday is an object inside of an object. So which itself is inside of the open hours. Now the open hours is already an object here that we have already stored in the structure. So here we are using the nested objects. Now we are starting with open hours. Open. Now I want to retrieve the Saturdays. Yeah? So let's try once. And this Saturday is opening hours. Now let's read the data right. So const curly braces, then give in curly braces Friday, then equal opening hours. So let's log this into console. Right. Actually, here in Friday we have two variables. One is for open and then the other one is for close. Now let's reload and check. We got here open and close, that is coming from Friday. Open 11, close 23. Actually, how it works means we have this Friday object here, and now we can further destructure that object by writing the property name of inner objects, that is here write in curly braces open and then close. Now replace this Friday with open and close. Now let's see the result here, that is 11 and 23. And now we can assign these variables also open, and then we need to assign different variables for this. Right here I'm giving here O for open and then close, giving C. Now what we have to do means delete this open and then give O, and then close also give C. Now let's see the result. So the same result will be displayed. Now we will create another method in JavaScript. We have functions with a lot of parameters, but then it can be hard to know the order of parameters for someone to using these parameters. And so instead of defining the parameters manually, we can just pass an object into the function as an argument, and the function will then immediately destructure that object. Let me show you that. Now let's write here order delivery, and then write the function, and then pass the argument as object. Now then I will log this into console. Let's write here object console.log object. Now let's write here restaurant dot order delivery. Now here in this write time. I'm giving here 11:30, and then address, that is I'm giving suppose XYZ, and then main address, sorry, main index, that is 2. And the next one is starter index, that should be 2. Now we are calling this function here and then passing in an object of option. Now let's replace this object with these names, that is write starter index and then main index, time, address. Now here also in this here log using template order receive, then literals using this keyword, this starter menu of starter index. This is starter index is the current one, and this dot zero main menu main index. It should be square brackets. Place the dollar. Close. Then after that will be deliver to address at your time. Now we get here this complete string that is based on the data that we passed in this single object. Now we realize that we only passed one object into this function. We did not pass four arguments. It's just one argument, one object. And the function, as we receive that object, we do immediately destructuring. So that's why these names here need to be exactly the names that we have down here. And here see the default values. So we can now use this to basically set defaults here. So let's say that the starter index that cannot be destructed means giving here I am 1, and then enter the main index will be 0 now, and the time should be giving 10. Now as we call this our method restaurant dot order delivery, right, delivery. Now I can specify here the address again, address, and then giving the starter index 1. And now here see the result. Here the second string will deliver the delivery at 10. So this is the time that we updated here. So we have written this here 10, and then here we have written the starter index 1. So that's why it was taken that this one starter menu starter index, that is this one. So this is 0 1 2 like this. Now here in this first one we have written that starter index 2. So that's why it displayed this one. And the same thing that is happened for main index also. Here in the first time we have given that main index number 2, the main index number that is this one 0 1 2, this displayed, and then next we have given that the main index value 0. So the 0th value is pizza, so that is displayed here. So if we ever need to write a function like this, a really complex one with a lot of parameters, and that might be then be hard to specify. And so this is all about the session. We'll continue in the next lecture. Thank you.